The so-called Cybersecurity Information Sharing Agency Act has cleared the last hurdle and has been signed by President Trump and is now law. So here to talk more about what that means and what the agency would entail is managing partner of CISSP Technology, John Horst. Nice to have you back, John.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
So what's the significance of this act?
This is really a reorganization of cybersecurity at the federal level. It really puts this agency of DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, as really the coordinating agency that is tasked with trying to herd the cats, if you will, make sure that all of the various industries are communicating with each other and cooperating. And the focus is on critical infrastructure. That's really the priority, the power grid, things like that.
How in the world do you keep track of all the technology advancements that are happening daily?
Well, I mean, you're always chasing after all. Yeah, you're always chasing after something. I've always liked to say that cybersecurity ultimately is about people, not about technology. It doesn't matter how great your technology is if your people aren't practicing what we would otherwise call cyber hygiene. We like to use public health metaphors.
That's a good one.
Basic cyber hygiene. If your folks don't know what cyber hygiene is, and if they're not practicing it, then the best technology isn't going to help. And so what we really are going to be focusing on, what DHS is going to be focusing on, is socializing the threats that are out there, making sure people understand what's out there, how to avoid getting hacked, things like that.
Now, I, for one, don't think the government does a good job about just about anything. They're they're way behind on a lot of technology, as we saw when Zuckerberg was testifying before Congress. They had no idea what he was even talking about.
Right.
I would count more on a company like yours to be more cutting edge or more in advance of what's going on. So how do you work with that and within the government structure of all of that?
Well,
or do you?
I do, but what I focus on when I'm working with a government client, I say, look, before we even talk about the technology, let's talk about what you do. And the government's really fond, the DoD in particular, of acronyms. And the acronym is CONOPS, or Concept of Operations. And I advocate for sitting down and writing out a security concept of operations. What do you do and how does it implicate security? Because when you go to these frameworks that DHS is going to be advocating, you look at these statements, this is how you should configure your system. But there may be operational reasons why you cannot do one or two of these particular steps. And a compliance mindset, you get all worked up over arguing about why you can't. Well, what you can do is you can look at the risk. Look at the control, look at what this says, how you're supposed to configure your system. Ask yourself, what risk is being controlled here? What risk are you worrying about? And then go over and determine what you can do that's consistent with your operations. And you can actually replace the control that comes out of the framework with a control that you can implement. But you have to know what you do. You have to have a concept of operations.
And I think what you brought up earlier is that the fact is, who are the people that are in control of these protocols all the way through? How do you clear them? How do you know that you can trust them? How do you know that their expertise level? All of these kinds of things, right?
Insider threats are one of the biggest threats, biggest attack vectors is an insider.
So is this act is this a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's a good thing. It's just we're going to have to be vigilant, because government agencies have a regulatory tendencies. They have this tendency to say, thou shalt do this. And when you look at that from a compliance viewpoint, you're either in or you're out. It's binary. Right? What DHS is chartered to do, and let's hope that they stay focused on this, is get out of the compliance mindset and get into a risk management mindset. These are completely different mindsets. A risk management mindset looks at the operations first and says, what do you do in your course of everyday business? And then understands the risks involved in those operations. And then where the controls in these frameworks, where they fit, great, use them right out of the box. Where they don't fit, don't worry about that. Do what you can do. Just document it and make it clear what you're doing to control the risk.
These are the kind of things that happen every day here in San Diego, military town. A lot of things happening here in this area. So, John Horst, thanks so much for being here. We hope they pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, how do we fix this?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that call.
Yes, I'm sure you are. John, great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you.
Appreciate you being here. All right.